Hello everybody and welcome to our fireside chat where this morning we're going to talk all things social enterprise. My name is Johanna Clancy. I'm non-executive director at Skull Enterprises, which is a social enterprise based on the eastern outskirts of Galway City. I'm also a lecturer and researcher at NUIG Galway, where I look again specifically at social enterprise development and the collaboration imperative of regional social enterprise. So I'm joined here today by Margaret Leahy from Rethink Ireland and Martin Ward from the Galway Traveller Movement and Bounceback Recycling. So welcome to you both and thanks for joining us today.
Good morning, Johanna.
Morning.
So we're just going to talk a little bit about the background and the establishment of your respective organisations and maybe the partnership elements with Skull Enterprises, if that's okay. So Margaret, how about you first?
Yes, so I'm Margaret Leahy and I'm the Social Enterprise Development Manager with Rethink Ireland. And Rethink Ireland are an organisation that supports social innovation, and we do it with a combination of funding, both philanthropic and government. And we support organisations with both cash grants and non-financial supports. And we do this across a wide range of social issues. I specifically work in the area of social enterprise, and within the social enterprise space we have several funds to support organisations. And this year we specifically have a Start a Social Enterprise business course, which really takes people from the very start with an idea, but we can talk more about that. But really our aim is to support social enterprises from the very embryonic idea all the way up to successful ones such as Bounceback Recycling. So we also have office space within Skull Enterprises, and we are a Dublin-based organisation, but we have regional offices in Cork and Galway, and in Galway we are in Skull Enterprises. And it's fantastic to be able to have office space in a social enterprise.
Okay, thank you. And Margaret, how would you see social enterprise in the west of Ireland, maybe comparing to the rest of Ireland?
The ecosystem for social enterprise in Ireland is quite diverse actually. And I would find in the west, a lot of the social enterprises can be smaller in scale than other parts. And a lot of that I think is because they start out at a very community level, wanting to solve a problem that's within their own area. So they want to solve a social problem, and it's very much a ground-up idea. They start at the ground with an idea that they want to do, and that's where a lot of social enterprises in the West came from. I think while there are a number of small ones, I think we also in the last couple of years have seen scaling and growth across quite a few of them actually, which is really encouraging. And I think that the West of Ireland has a very strong history of social enterprise. One of the programs that supports social enterprise is the Community Services Programme. At one stage, the largest numbers of CSPs in any one county was in Mayo. So the West has a very strong focus and history of social enterprise, and I think it's a fantastic way of looking at problems at an area, whether it's locally, regionally or nationally, and coming up with a way where you solve the social problem, but you also act as a business, which improves your sustainability.
Okay, brilliant. So you're based on campus at NUIG Galway?
Yes, so we have a space at the ILS building in NUIG Galway, and as I say, space in Skull Enterprises as well, yes.
Okay, thanks Margaret. Martin, how about Bounceback Recycling?
Yeah, as well, Bounceback Recycling was established in 2017 by Galway Traveller Movement. We're a social enterprise based in Ballybad in Galway. We offer a mattress and furniture recycling service to domestic and commercial clients. The reason Bounceback was established was to create employment for members of the traveller community who faced huge barriers to employment, and there was a consistently high unemployment rate amongst the community of always over 80%, even during boom times. So Galway Traveller Movement, taking direction from the community with tasks from the grassroots level to see what we were going to do in the area of enterprise and work. So we've always advocated for travellers' right to work in mainstream employment, and trying to get that societal change is very tough. So we decided what could we do as a community and take a step back and look at internally. So how are we going to utilise the skills within our community? So we did that by looking at the social enterprise model, and then we just needed to find a gap to create the social enterprises. So Bounceback Recycling, there was no mattress recycling service in the Connacht Ulster Waste region at the time, so then that was a gap in the market, and we knew we had people who was looking for employment. So we started to operate the service on a part-time basis in 2017 with 3 part-time staff and myself as the manager. And we recycled 3,000 mattresses in that year. And year on year then we've grown from there. 2018 we did 9,000 mattresses and we had 5 staff. And to date we have 16 staff and we're doing over 20,000 items between mattresses, bed bases and couches. I suppose initially it was all about employment, and then the environmental impact we were having kind of came second nature to us, because we now know that there's 600,000 mattresses disposed of annually in Ireland. 90% of this resources could feed back into the circular economy, which would be a huge impact to that piece. And for us, I suppose, we would now say that we're reinventing ourselves as the original recyclers of Ireland, linking it back to travellers doing tinsmith over 100 years ago, because we were asked, is this new to travellers? We said, no, sorry, we've reinvented ourselves now and come back in the area of mattress recycling, because there was such a need for travellers in the tinsmith era before the plastic bucket came in, and now we have a very high on the agenda for the mattress recycling piece. Over the next 3 years, we're looking to grow from 16 staff to 30 staff, and we recycle up to 100,000 mattresses per annum.
Wow, great growth plans there. Yeah. Wonderful story, and I know it's an award-winning organisation, so well done on all your achievements. So what would you see, based on the growth that you've had and how you've scaled, what would you see as the main challenges in further scaling?
I suppose for us, we never thought we'd be at this stage. It was initially just looking at how we would create another handful of jobs because it was our second social enterprise. But the more knowledge we got in, and one of the key things is that we have a community that just wants to bust that myth that travellers don't want to work. So without our staff, if we didn't have staff on board, that would be a major challenge, but we do. And every time we introduce a new county, there's never a problem. Let's go, let's do this, we're ready to do it. I suppose some of the challenges is trying to secure some funding for a lot of social enterprises, whether, for capital. A lot of the funding that's out there at the minute might be for overheads, for instance. And there isn't really, outside of the Rethink Ireland Growth Fund piece, there is no real funding towards scaling a social enterprise in Ireland, or even access to finance to scale the social enterprises. So for us, and then I suppose the additional stuff around where we're looking at, we're a traveller service, and attitudes and behaviours towards the traveller community while trying to grow and scale our social enterprise. So every time we talk about our social impact, will that mean that somebody will disengage and not use the service because of coming from a minority group that faces huge levels of racism and discrimination in Ireland? So for us, we're going to say, and we've geared the team to say we're going to change that one mattress at a time, and that's all in our control. We can't control people's mindset, but we can turn it on its head by saying we have now recycled 70,000 mattresses. We have 16 staff employed. That is just a myth that travellers don't want to work.
One mattress at a time.
One mattress at a time.
Yeah, well done. So you talked about scalability and the financial difficulties around that, and I think, Margaret, you could really speak to this in terms of what you do with Rethink Ireland. Can you just speak a little bit about what you offer, the supports you offer, both financial and non-financial, because I think that there is a myth out there that what all social enterprises need is financial backing, which is tough to get. But there's also plenty of the non-financial aspects. So could you offer some advice on that, please?
I think that's really important, Johanna. And I think that social enterprises need both support. They both need funding, but they also need what we call the non-financial supports. And within Rethink Ireland, we try and offer that support at every level and every stage of growth. So as I said, this year we're doing the Start a Social Enterprise course, which is for people who are literally sitting at the kitchen table going, oh, I wonder if we could, or maybe we should, and we're going to give them some very basic skills. We then have a startup fund, and in that this year we will have, and we had last year as well, 20 awardees. They will get a cash grant of 10,000, and they'll also get a place in our accelerator programme, and they'll also get one-to-one support from a consultant to develop their own strategic plan. And I know Martin has said this publicly, and so have all our awardees, that one-to-one support and accelerator are every bit, if not more, valuable than the cash, because cash is great, but cash comes and goes, whereas the skills you get on our accelerator and working with the consultant to have a plan are really important. So then we have the Social Enterprise Development Fund, the SED fund. That's for organisations that are gone beyond the startup stage, that are looking to scale. And we look at scaling both from scaling big, but also scaling deep. So it might be looking at what they're doing and doing it differently, or having a bigger impact. And then some of our social enterprises, not many, because it's quite a big jump, are on our growth fund, and Bounceback Recycling would be on our growth fund. And that's for significant scaling. That's where you really are taking it and taking a big jump. But it's really important, that balance. And so many of our social enterprises who've come on some of our funds have said that being able to take a step back and really look at where they want to go strategically, to develop their own communications plan, their own marketing plan, to really sit down and work on with their board and their staff, where do we want to go? Okay, so we started out wanting to solve this problem, but A, are we solving it? Can we prove we're solving it? So are we even measuring what we're doing? And is there a different way of doing it, or a more efficient way of doing it? So it's really important, we feel, in Rethink Ireland, and we do this with our funds, and we couldn't do it without the support of IPB Insurance and the Department of Rural and Community Development, who both fund the work we do. We're also currently involved in an EU-funded project called the EASY project, and that is looking at social finance and a way of providing finance to social enterprises. Because again, I know Martin would be aware of this. While we have talked about the cash and the combination of that and the accelerator, sometimes the cash is a big issue, because if you're a social enterprise and you go to a regular bank, they will want personal guarantees, which is a big responsibility and something really tough to get directors of your board to take on. So you really end up either having grants or commercial lending, and we're looking for something different. Now, there are some social finance funders such as Clancy and Community Finance Ireland, but we want to look at, making sure that it's as easy as possible for organisations to access funding, and maybe, tweaking some of our accelerators or working with them to make them investment ready, to help them be investment ready. Because if you're investment ready, it's easier for the funder to then give you the finance. So the EASY project, we're working on that as part of a consortium. And in that consortium are ourselves, Rethink Ireland, DCU and Community Finance Ireland.
Okay, so you have talked about, the challenges regarding the financial challenges and the help and support that you can provide in terms of strategic help, legal help and advice. Are there other challenges that you see, Martin, that are very specific to social enterprises, like networking, for example? Can that be difficult? Are there many networking opportunities or ways that you can market yourselves?
There's more of them now at the minute, I suppose. In the last couple of years, there is a lot of work done in this area. So even having the National Social Enterprise Strategy, the first time one of them came to Ireland was in 2019. There is funding out at the minute around building awareness of the sector. So I think prior to that, and definitely I suppose even since Rethink Ireland came on board, like over the last 4 or 5 years, there's been a good bit of momentum in this space. But prior to that, I'd say there was very little, I'd say. And I think a lot of the times as well, that can be back to ourselves. We are so under-resourced as a sector, and we are so busy that we forget that it is so key around the networking, the marketing, getting out there, because the manager could be all things to everybody. The manager could be the person that sweeps the floor. The manager could be the person that unloads the truck. You don't have, you're trying to grow and scale a social enterprise, and you do what you have to do. Like I remember saying at one stage, you really have to care about this space to be actually in it, because there's so much to be done. And for me, like I probably could go get potentially a job in mainstream, but that's not what really suits me at the minute. I just really believe in the change for the community and what we're driving, and that social change is key to what keeps me in Bounceback. So I do think that there is challenges with trying to free up time, with trying to see the value in the marketing and network opportunities. But as people scale and grow, and I suppose developing the skills of the leadership team and the whole team to take on some of the roles, that it isn't, about one individual or one person doing it.
I think that's important to note, that it's not just about one person, and also that you have to have both passion and discipline to grow social enterprises. And you've talked about the National Social Enterprise Policy. Do you feel that government and policy are taking on board enough the thoughts of those on the ground in the space?
I think it was a good strategy at first, and now there's been opportunities to input into that under the OECD. And then I suppose there's a lot of work done and more to be done. It was such a pity it came in 2019 and then the COVID pandemic hit us in 2020, which really probably put some of the implementation of the policy, I would think, or the delivery on some of the actions on the back burner, because everybody was firefighting everything else. Like for us, even in Bounceback, it was how do we survive? How do we get through this pandemic? How do we keep the doors open? You know, so it was like we had only ever closed for 2 weeks during that piece. So, but it will take more than the policy, I suppose. It'll take the whole sector. It'll take every single social enterprise to really drive this forward. Because having a policy is one thing, implementation and building awareness and the whole growth of this space will only happen with every single social enterprise in the country fully getting behind it.
Yeah, and I think just to follow on from Martin's point about building awareness, that was in the policy. And last year, the Department of Rural and Community Development brought out an Arise programme, which they're funding through dormant accounts, and that is to highlight the work of social enterprises. And we in Rethink Ireland, and I know a lot of other organisations got funding under that. And what we're doing is we're trying to make the whole concept of social enterprises much more familiar to people outside the sector, because within the sector we all know what they do, but it's very difficult to get those outside the sector. And by raising awareness, you increase sustainability, because you're going to have customers then buying from social enterprises. So under the Arise programme, we're at the moment doing videos of some really good projects. I mean, we even flew out to the Aran Islands last week to Orcasol, which is a recycling centre out there that we have funded. And they actually now divert 61% of the waste of the 3 Aran Islands out of landfill, which I think is phenomenal. And getting back to Martin's point about networking, Orcasol and Bounceback actually are working together. So they now actually have a mattress recycling that they work with Bounceback on. So one of the things about networking within the social enterprises themselves is that they can support each other and buy from each other and, you know, trade with each other, which I think is really important. But I also think the Arise Fund is really important, because we need the general public to understand. And I think there's an appetite for that at the moment. People want to spend their money where it's doing good. I mean, you see the whole talk about fast fashion and everything else and circular economy. I think if people know that by purchasing from social enterprises, you're getting a really good quality product, but you're also helping some of society's problems, I think the general community will get behind social enterprises a lot more.
So awareness, yes, awareness is a key thing for social enterprises as well to be aware of, and communicating the impact that you have. And as we know, creating awareness is a core objective of the National Plan for Social Enterprise. But what's also really important is sustainability of social enterprises. And we know that this is a key stumbling block for many social enterprises. And this whole thing of balancing the social and environmental mission with the economic imperative. And often the economic side is seen as the dirty part of it, which it's not. I mean, we need this, we need to make money and make a profit to bring it back into the business to continue having an impact. And Martin, you talked about your own organisation having a social impact, an environmental impact, and also the economic impact of all the jobs you're creating, etc. And we often refer to this as the triple bottom line. And with Rethink Ireland then, is there a particular strength in any one of those 3 areas, or between social and environmental, Margaret, that you see as leading the way, or with Ireland really leading the way in any of these in particular?
Yeah, it's funny, there's quite a trend at the moment for a lot of the applicants we get to our funds are in the environmental area actually. That is definitely becoming a trend, and we see that quite a bit. I think for us what's really important is the sustainability bit, okay? So if you're not sustainable, you're not doing any good. And I often say that to startup social enterprises. If you charge, we'll say €5 for something, and it's costing you €4, well, you're barely going to make it even, right? But if you charge more, you are then sustainable and you can deliver the service, because if you go bust, you're not helping anybody. And that's the thing, I think a lot of social enterprises, I'm not sure if Martin agrees, a lot of social enterprises struggle with charging because they feel, well, we can't really charge because either we're working with vulnerable groups or what we're providing is, it's just what we're doing locally. And I think that a lot of social enterprises really need to take pride in what they're doing and not be afraid to charge. I mean, I think for me, one of the big things about social enterprises is they are doing so much good, but they are businesses. That's the bottom line. They operate as a business, they have a traded income.
And I think that part is forgotten.
I think that's very, very often forgotten. And our CEO, Deirdre Mortell, actually has an ambition that 40% of SMEs in Ireland will be social enterprises in 20 years, which I think would be fantastic. And I think one of the areas of improving sustainability and the impact across the other areas is looking at their financial sustainability, but also supporting them to charge, supporting them to feel they can charge for what they're doing, and supporting them to feel proud of what they're doing, and that act as a business and really up the business skills within the sector. I think that's crucial because, as I say, a lot of them start wanting to solve an issue, which is fantastic. And, you know, sometimes when you're very close to an issue that you want to solve, you may not have the business skills to be able to make it a sustainable business. So that's where we come in, and we really try and up the skill level within social enterprises, because, as I say, if you can't pay the electricity bill and you're not keeping the door open, you're helping nobody.
And that's one of the main impediments, really, isn't it, for social enterprises, is getting past the passion and the impact part to see how you can make money from this to bring it back in to be profitable and continue to have an impact. And did you grapple with that element of it at any stage, Martin?
Not really, because we knew we were setting it up, so we knew we wanted to create that social impact. The environmental impact came afterwards, but in order to do that, we knew we would have to trade for, it was a traded income, and we would have to charge for our services. So we did a lot of research, and we had a big feasibility study done prior to starting Bounceback. We did a feasibility study in 2014 on mattresses, so that's how far ahead we were in doing that. But I suppose, like Margaret is saying, it's key is that we're offering a very valuable service, and it's been able to charge for that, because funding will come and go, and you're at the grace of the applications or a judging panel for when it comes to funding, and that isn't sustainable. Do you know what I mean? So for us, it was like, okay, I would say to people, don't give me funding in local authorities, give me the mattresses from your civic community site for the next 20 years, and we're fine. We'll create a sustainable model that the traded income then will be constantly coming in. I won't have to worry, well, this funding is gone after 3 months, what am I going to do? How are we going to keep the lights open? Am I letting people go? You know, that's no way to be operating a social enterprise. And even for staff and like service users, like you definitely need 3 or 5 years lead-in time at least. So we would work with a lot of the local authorities around the country, delivering mattress amnesty days, and they pay us for our service. So like there's a gap in the market for what we do. We charge for that gap. People buy the services based on that, and in turn then that delivers social and environmental impacts into the communities across the country.
Okay, great. And in addressing these funding calls, and because you need money and you need funding to continue to grow, we see what the concept is termed mission drift, where social enterprises, while they have their passion, yet they need to grow, they find that maybe their mission is somewhat altered to address these funding calls to continue to make money. How do you feel that your organisation, or Margaret, maybe you've seen organisations finding this a challenge where they're facing a mission drift in order to make this money to continue to be profitable?
Yeah, I think, if I'm honest, I think that happens sometimes more in the general community sector than social enterprises, because social enterprises usually have, at the very least, a basic concept of what they want to sell or what they want to trade in. The balance is the trading and, as you say, the mission. I'm not sure it's a mission drift as much as a losing the focus on the mission. So it's very hard to get that balance. I mean, as Martin was saying, when you're the manager of a social enterprise, you're sweeping the floor, you're driving the truck, you're answering the phone, you're doing the plan, you're applying for funding, you're going to award ceremony, you're doing all of that. And sometimes it's almost easy to forget why you're doing it, because you're trying to keep the doors open and the electricity on. So I think one of the things, that's where the board can come into it very strongly. So, you know, I always think the relationship between the board and the staff is crucial. And very often the board is where the idea came from. So somebody who might have an idea for social enterprise, who wants to work with a particularly vulnerable group or whatever, that they end up on the board because they don't have the business skills, or they have another life that they work themselves or whatever. So I feel that the board are the ones who really need to hold on to the mission and to support the staff then to make sure that that stays front and centre, but that they also have the operational part of it sorted, that there's, say, to keep the lights on. So it's that balance, and I think that it's getting more and more difficult to get people to go on boards, because there can be quite a lot of responsibility, time, people are time poor and everything else. So I think that as a sector, we need to really be aware of the role of the board and support the board as much as the organisation.
Has it been difficult for Galway Traveller Movement and Bounceback Recycling to get board members with specific expertise that you might need?
Yeah, no, we had an existing board and driving that through, but there is times of key stuff. So even with BBR now, over the growth, we're going to bring in a business advisory team that will be focused on different parts of the growth of the business. So that'll be one part that we're going to establish during it, because people will be happy, I think, to attend meetings like that rather than get caught up in the directorship of boards and stuff like that. They're so over in it. The governance now stuff it's key and it has to be done. But like when you have the charity stuff and you have the companies limited by guarantee, a lot of people don't get involved in this sector to be dealing with all of that type of stuff. You know what I mean? So it's very tough to get people, I would think, now to be coming onto boards. People are nearly running a mile, because it's, I would say nearly, I hate to say it on camera, but it's nearly over-regulation, like with the amount of stuff people have to do. It takes them away from, I suppose, really, people would say, well, I want to deliver the social impact on the ground, and yet I'm here talking about this for weeks, you know, so it's going to become tougher, I'd say, unless there's a balance
I agree,
brought to the whole
It will
area.
become tougher, and I think social enterprise is a fuzzy kind of a concept for many, even for ourselves. How do you define social enterprise? There are many different definitions. So as we wrap this up, how would each of you define social enterprise?
Well, there is obviously the definition in our own policy, which I think is a really good definition.
You think it's all encompassing? You think
I think it
everything?
is, yeah. I think for me, if I'm looking at social enterprise, it's a business that really wants to do good in a particular area, and they use the profit they make to ensure that that good happens. I think that's what I would describe as a social enterprise.
Yeah, and similar to Margaret there, it is around that social good and delivering back into communities is key. I think that the definition of a social enterprise sector can be wide, but I do still think that we need some kind of criteria that protects it from because otherwise, a business that's delivering corporate social responsibility could claim to be a social enterprise. So, it's the people that is affected that's leading that change, I think.
So, Martin, if there was any one piece of advice you could give to budding social entrepreneurs, what would it be?
Run a mile.
Run a mile.
No, only joke. And I would say this whole sector, I only came involved in it probably about 10 or 12 years ago, but it's very rewarding when you definitely coming from I remember the traveller community, seeing the change that this whole social enterprise Bounceback has done for the community members, 16 staff, 16 families affected, because sometimes we forget about that. We can't only just think about the employees. If you deny people the right to work, you're like, people are trapped in poverty, do you know what I mean, for the rest of their life. Plus it affects their partners, their kids, so I just think that what we've achieved in Bounceback, I'm extremely proud of, and we couldn't have done that without the whole team. And it's really put the myth to bed that travellers don't want to work.
Brilliant. You should be very proud of yourself and all you've done. Yeah, well done. Thank you both very much. Really interesting conversation, and hopefully we'll get to catch up soon again on it. So thank you everybody for listening, and we will see you all soon.